Hi everyone, it's Dina and I'm back again today with another casual beading tutorial. In today's tutorial, it'll be the second out of 3 where we will produce a set using the Double Rainbow Design Challenge Kit that's produced by SoftFlex company, and it was released in February of 2025. From that kit, you'll need 2 of the bead caps, the smaller bead caps or the thinner bead caps that came in the kit. You'll need 1 of the rainbow beads, 2 of the turquoise bicones, 2 of the matte crystal beads, 2 of the orange crystals, and then anywhere between 2 on up to maybe even 10 of the 6mm crystal AB check fire polish beads. And that's just to depict how long your bracelet needs to be. So that's why there's a difference in those quantities. Outside of the kit, you'll need 2 jump rings if you decide to attach your clasp of choice in the same fashion that I will. So you'll need a clasp of choice. You'll need a needle of choice. I'm just using a Pony brand. I have a size 11 on my thread. It just depends on what's more comfortable for you. You'll need some thread. I'm using white color today in the Wildfire 0.006. Dragon thread size 8 is another one that works really well for this project. You'll need some seed beads. I'm using Miyuki 11Os. This is the matte white color, and the color number is 402F. Then you'll need some 8Os as well. And I'm using the matte crystal 8Os in Miyuki again, and the number is 131F. If you choose to use your jump rings, you'll need a couple of pairs of pliers to help open and close your jump rings. So gather up your supplies and meet me back, and I'll show you that first step. Alright, now that we have our supplies out, let's get started with this bracelet. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a stop bead. So my 8Os are sitting here on my piece of felt that hopefully I will not connect to and throw my beads everywhere, which I did in the earring, but it is what it is. If it happens, I apologize. I do have my 8Os here, and then my 11Os are piled here. So I'm going to use one of my 8Os as a stop bead. I'm going to bring this stop bead about 3/4 of the way down the length of thread that I chose to tie or to burn off. And that's only because I don't know exactly how long of a bracelet that these particular beads are going to make. And since I have not made this bracelet yet, I don't know exactly how many of these crystal beads I'm going to need on the end. So what we're going to start doing after we get this stop bead on, we're going to start down here with just the 2 crystal beads, and then we're going to slowly add, or we'll go ahead and add all the rest of the beads, and then just end with 2 crystal beads on the other side, doing the same pattern that I'll end up teaching you here in just a moment. And if that ends up being a perfect length, then great, we're done. If not, you have that extra thread on the other end just past your stop bead that you can add on to the other side if you need to add on extra beads. So my preferred length of bracelet is somewhere around a 7.5 inch bracelet. Other people like 8-inch bracelets, and some people even wear something closer to a 9-inch bracelet. So your size of bracelet, you're probably going to need, or you could need, more, and then sometimes even less, depending on who you're making this for, as far as the crystal beads are concerned. So that's how I'm going to start off mine. So I've got my 8O about 3/4 of the way down, so I have quite a bit, and I'd say but that's probably about 8 inches or so of thread as my tail. I'm just going to go back through that bead one more time and make this be my stop bead. Just like that. So what we're going to start off doing first is we're going to do a double right angle weave stitch. So we're going to add 4 seed beads, 4 11Os onto our thread and needle, and then bring that all the way down to our stop bead. Then we're going to go back through just that first bead, and we're going to make a double right angle weave or a double raw stitch. To do that, once you pull these beads tight And it doesn't have to be exactly up against the stop bead. It's perfectly fine if you have a little bit of a looseness right there too, because you can move the stop bead up and down if you need to. But we're coming out of that first bead, and then that's your first raw unit. Now we're going to make it a double raw unit. So pick up another 11-0. We're coming out of the first bead, go through the second bead in that first raw unit. And when you do that, and not lose your tension like I just did, it'll end up sticking out in more of a picot fashion. So let's continue on. Add your second 11-0, go through the next 11-0 in line, and then that one should show like a picot also. Add your third one to go through the next 11-0 in line, so there's your third picot, and then add your last one. And my tension is kind of getting loose because I'm trying to teach this, but I'll tighten it up in just a second. So I'm going through that first, or that last 11-0, and when you get everything pulled tight, you'll have something that looks more like a diamond. So that's your double right angle weave, or your double raw stitch. So now we need to get to, because our starter thread is coming out of the bead that we're just now coming out of on the opposite side. So now we need to get to the other end, so this tip bead down here. So just continue on through your double right angle weave, or your double raw stitch. You can go through the tip beads if you like. You don't have to, you can skip them and just go through the 4 original beads. It's whatever is more easier for you to get through. So once we're getting out of that bottom tip bead in the bottom of the double raw unit, we're now to where we need to add our first decorative bead. So now I'm holding it in this fashion. I'm going to pick up my first 6mm crystal bead, and this will be the same thing that we'll be doing on each one of these until we get to the middle part. When we get to the middle part, it's just slightly different, so I'll just do probably 1, maybe 2 of these, depending on how long it takes me to teach you how to do it, of these guys. And then it's the same thing all the way throughout. So pick up one of your crystal ABs, and you'll need a bead on the other end. And there it goes. I knew I was going to do it eventually. But you'll need another 11-0 on the other end. Alright, so when you pull it down, your beads should look like this. Now we need to complete this addition and make it sit correctly, make the beads sit correctly by going back through this original double right angle weave and this tip bead down here. So to do that, we're going to skip that 11-0 that we just added, go back through the crystal, so now you're up here again, and then we were beading in a clockwise fashion, so we need to go back through that tip bead, and that's in that double right angle unit, going from the right to the left in a clockwise fashion again. So just like that. And you want to keep your tension somewhat tight, but not too tight to where things can't move around very well. Because you want this bead down here that's sticking out on the other side of the crystal bead, or any bead that you add, you want that one to be somewhat loose, so that way you can go through it and be able to add extra beads here in a second. So now I'm going to get you set up to where we can start our next double right angle weave. So we're going to go back through the crystal again. And then, like I had said earlier, I like to bead in a clockwise fashion. So I'm going to go through the 11-0 from the left to the right. If I hold it this way, it's from the left to the right. And now we're set up to where we're going to add our next double raw unit. So we're coming out of that. My beads are scattered everywhere. My camera doesn't know what to look at. Alright, so from here on out, this is how you're going to add your new double raw unit. Still pick up 4 beads, and we're going to go circle through the bead that is already sitting there up against the crystal bead. When we pull that tight, it looks similar to what we started off with, but when we started off with up here, we only had 4 beads on our thread and needle. Here we have 5 beads. So what do now? Continue through that first bead that we added on this step. Because now that tip bead that's sitting right after that crystal bead, the one that we circled back through a couple of times, now becomes the next tip bead for this double right angle unit. So up here, the first one we added 4 extra beads around the sides. This one we already have the first one already added, so we just need to add 3 more. So we're coming out of that first bead that we added, out of the set of 4, we're picking up another 11-0 and going through the next one in line. And then that is your second tip bead. Pick up another 11-0, go through the next one in line. That is your third one added. So now we only have 1 more to add to finish out the diamond look. So pick up 1 more 11-0 and go through that 4th bead. And then now you have something that looks like a double right angle weave again. So now we need to get ourselves back down here again. So to do that, I would suggest, if you can, skip over this bead right here and just go back through the next bead in line. That'll help keep that bead to sit more like a picot. So that way it sits a little bit more like a picot like that. And then continue on the next beads, and now you're set up to add the next one. And I'll get you started on the next one because it's the same thing of what we just did with that first crystal. So you would pick up your next bead in line, and for me it's going to be a crystal until I know how long my length is going to be, and then another 11-0. And you pull that down to your project, skip over the 11-0, go back through the crystal. Then we need to complete the connection of this one, so go back through the tip bead in a clockwise fashion through that tip only, and now you've got your crystal added again. So then that's all you do. Just continue on. Like I said, I'm only going to add the 2 crystals, then I'm going to go to the orange bead, and then I have the matte crystal bead sitting next. Then I have one of the bicones, and then I'll meet you back and I'll show you how to add this combination here, which is very similar, but just in case somebody's a little confused with it, I'll come back and I'll show you how to add that one. Meet you back in just a second. Alright, so we've got everything set up so far, up until the middle of the bracelet, and then this is what it looks like so far. And some of these double raw units are going to flip around, like one of them may look more this way, and then the others may look more like that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I like the organic look to that. But if that's something that bothers you, then you can always just play around with your tension and try to get your double raw units to sit more flat like that. So now we're to the center of the bracelet. So to pick up your beads for the center, you want to go through your bead cap first, where it is going through, make sure it's going through that center hole, because sometimes you can pick them up and accidentally go through one of these other holes. So make sure you're going through the center hole of the bead cap. And then I'm going to pick up my rainbow bead, and then I'm going to put the other bead cap on the other side, so that way the bead caps are hugging the rainbow bead. So it's just like that. And you can see the bead caps on either side. So it's just add the same way as the other beads. Pick up another one of your 11-0s, and then when you pull everything down, that's the way it should look. And then just go back through your bead cap, your rainbow bead, and your other bead cap, making sure you're going through the center and not one of the extra holes by accident. And then finish the completion of these beads by going back through that double raw unit in a clockwise fashion again. So these are just added the same way. You just add the bead caps on either side. So continue on the bracelet in the same fashion, and then I'll meet you back here at the other end of it after that second crystal bead, and then I'll have one of the double right angle weave units after that crystal bead, and I'll meet you back and we'll measure and see if we need to add any more. Alright, so now that we have our bracelet all the way down and we've added all of our extra beads and we've got our double raw units on either end, now we need to figure out how many more of the crystal AB beads plus another raw unit afterwards that we need to add in order to get to the length that we want. To do that, we need to figure out how much our clasp is going to take up. So if you get your clasp out, we're going to measure how we're going to put this together. What I've done, that really didn't come out right, but what we're going to end up doing is measuring how much room this clasp will take up. So I've laid out a 8/0 seed bead on either end of the clasp and then just left a little bit of extra room for that jump ring, because the jump ring itself is going to go from the 8/0 to directly to the magnetic clasp. I don't have the jump rings out at the moment because they are metal and they keep attaching to my magnetic clasp, so it's kind of hard to actually measure it. So I've just kind of gauged it just a little bit, and with that measurement it ends up being right about at 3/4 of an inch. So I know that my clasp is going to be somewhere around 3/4, maybe just a little bit more than 3/4 of an inch. So to figure out how much we need to add as far as our extra beads are concerned, we need to start off at that 3/4 of an inch over here on the right at the tip most part of our raw unit that's sitting over here. Now if you have a bracelet mandrel, this is probably a little bit easier to actually measure to see how long your bracelet actually is. I don't own one of those just yet, so I have to use the flat measuring method. So like I said, if you have a bracelet mandrel, you'll be able to measure this a little bit easier. But I'm starting off over here. That tipmost bead is sitting right around the 3/4 of an inch mark. And then my tipmost bead over here is just past the 6-inch mark. So that means that this bracelet is going to be, if we finished it off now, somewhere around 6 inches. Which is actually going to be a little bit less than 6 inches, because you have to think about how big your beads are that you added in your bracelet. That's going to take up extra space as well. So once you get this on, plus the size of your clasp, you know how the circumference of this clasp and everything adds to the overall size of the bracelet as well. Once you add all of that on, it's going to be closer to like a 5 and 5 1/4 inch bracelet. So it's going to be pretty tiny at the moment. And some people have small wrists, so this might be perfect for you. If not, then this is how we add on. I'm just going to take it one at a time. What you'll probably need to do is go ahead and get another needle out if you have one handy. If not, you can always just add on an extra bead on this side where your thread is already connected to your needle, and then you can take the needle off and then add it on down here. What I'm going to do right now, since I do have an extra needle handy, I'm just going to show you how to add on and how to get yourself set up to where you're coming out of the correct bead in order to add on one more crystal and one more double raw unit on this side, and then do the same thing on this side, because you want everything to be symmetrical. So what we'll do on this side is just take our stop bead off. The stop bead just only has one strand of thread through it right now, so usually just sliding it off is typically pretty easy. Sometimes it's not. You just have to be careful with it. Try not to break your thread or anything. And this is how I add my thread to my needle. I take my pliers, I squish just the end of the thread with my pliers just to make it a little bit flat. And then you want to try to push the eye of your needle onto the thread. And once you do that, and you actually hit the eye of the needle, Of course, this is really far away from my head, so very hard for me to do this at the moment. I think I can. I know I can. Nope, missed it. And nope, still missed it. Hopefully it's not a bad needle, because sometimes you have needles that you've used several times and the eye just gets really, really small. Oh, got it that time. And sometimes it's hard to get your thread back through it again. So, got it that time. So that's all I do to add my thread to my needle. Alright, so we've got that on there finally. Now we're coming out of this bead right here, in between the bead and the, what did I call these? The tip beads. So we need to continue through the tip bead in a clockwise fashion again, so we can get all the way back up to this bead up here, so we can add on our next bead, our next crystal. So continue through your double raw unit. You can skip beads like we've done in the other clips as well, or you can go through them, whatever is easiest for you. There again, you don't want to cause yourself too much stress trying to figure out what beads to go through. Just go ahead and get yourself to that bead up there, which my needle is being difficult. There we go. Alright, so now you're set up again to add your next crystal. So you would add your crystal and continue adding on just like we have been doing. So a crystal and a seed bead, and then go back through the crystal again to get back down here to round it out, to attach that, and then add your next double raw unit. So add this one on to this end, add one on to the working end down here, and then come back and measure again. If your bracelet length is about the size that you feel like is going to be the correct size, then go ahead and then meet me back in the next step, and then I'll show you how to actually add your clasp. If your bracelet size, after adding just one more extra crystal bead and your raw unit, is still not long enough, go ahead and add an extra one. So once you get to the length that you like, meet me back and then I'll show you how to add your clasp. Alright, so before I actually show you how to put on the clasp itself, what do you do as a second option after you add your crystal beads and then your double raw unit afterwards? If you just need just a little bit more room, and adding another crystal bead plus a raw unit is going to be way too much. So what do you do then? Go ahead and just add another double raw unit. So that way you would have two raw units on the ends. Just don't forget to add it on the other end as well, because you want one side of your bracelet to look the same as the other. So in mine, going ahead and just adding the 3 crystal beads plus the raw units, excuse me, afterwards, ends up, I think that's going to end up being just fine. So what do you do after that now? So now we need to add our clasp on. Before we do that, we need to add on our, what are these? The 8/0s. To do that, I'm coming out of that tipmost bead of your double raw unit. We're going to square stitch on our 8/0. So pick up your 8/0. And then I'm coming out of the left side of that tip bead. I'm going to go through that same bead from the right to the left again. And we're going to square stitch this one on, just like this. When you pull this down, it'll sit your 8/0 basically on top of your raw unit. We're going to go back through the 8/0 one more time, and then go back through that 11/0 one more time. And then once you get all of that done, you can kind of position your 8/0 just a little bit if you need to, and then your 8/0 should be sitting on top of your double raw unit. So now we just need to tie off this thread. To tie off the thread, I want to go through or around one of the bridge threads. So all I'm doing is that my thread is coming out in between the tip bead right here and this next bead, one of the center beads. So I'm just going to go through the center of the raw unit. I'm going to create a loop. I'm going to go through that loop with my thread, or with my needle, and then I'm going to pull that loop and make sure that it goes in between the two beads there. And then when you pull tight, it pulls it tight in between, and you've made one of your knots there. So to make your next knot, which I would suggest to do probably at least 3 of these type of knots. You can do more. I would probably suggest to do at least 3. I would not just do 1. You need to have several just in case something happens and you want your bracelet to be well put together and everything. So I'm going back through the loop again, created a small little loop with the thread, go through that loop with the needle, and then pull it tight, just making sure that that loop and that knot stays in between those two beads. So then that's number 2. And then number 3, I'm just continuing through the raw unit until I get to the next little spot, which is right here. And we can put one right here as well, doing the same thing. And I'm throwing my beads around again, just making sure that this loop or this knot stays in between the beads and doesn't wrap around anything. So now I've got 3 knots in my thread. I'm going to continue through the tip bead here, and I'm actually going to go through the crystal bead and come out the other side, and I'm going to burn off my thread on the other side. And here comes Kylie. Hi. No, I can't pet right now, sweetie. Come on. Come on. I know, you want attention. I know. Come on. Oh, and you're falling off my desk. Come on, kitty cat. There you go. I know you want attention. You gotta give me a few minutes, kitty cat. Okay, so I'm going to go back through the crystal bead, and then that's where I'm going to tie off, or burn off, excuse me. And then that way, this will be sitting right next to a crystal bead and the white beads, so you shouldn't see this portion unless you're looking way too close to your bracelet. Alright, so that is now on. So all you'll need to do is just add your 8/0 on the other side in the same way, and then meet me back, and then we'll finish off the bracelet by connecting the jump rings to the clasp. Okay, so let's add on our clasp. We'll need to get our 2 pliers out so we can open up our jump rings. So putting each plier on either side of the jump ring and then twisting open like this. Oh, let me make sure that twists open just a little bit more and get it through the 8/0. Then we want to put this jump ring through the 8/0. Now it does have 2 thread passes in there, so the jump ring will fit, but you just have to take it slowly. So just make sure that you're not forcing it through there. And why am I having difficulties? This just worked a second ago before I started recording. And then now it doesn't want to work when I want to record. It's so funny how that happens. Okay, so sometimes if it doesn't fit, it could be the jump ring. It could be that there is a clump of metal somewhere that's inhibiting it to go through. It could also be the bead as well. but you just take your time, and if you have to, you can always use a different jump ring. But for the most part, this thing does work. There it goes. See? It works. I just had to be careful with it and just take my time and get it through that 8/0 seed bead. Now I'm going to hold on to the jump ring close to the end over here with the chain nose pliers, and then I'm going to slide 1/2 of my clasp on, or that one loop. And since it is magnetic, it is going to attach to my pliers here in a second, like that. So now this becomes the more difficult part of trying to close up your jump ring with a magnetic clasp. But just again, take your time, and then eventually you'll get that jump ring closed. So we'll do that one more time and throw everything all over the place again. Let's see, gotta find the opening of the jump ring. There it is. And then twist open. Add it to your 8/0 seed bead, going slowly. Oh, see how fast that one went in? That one worked really well. Now I want to make sure that I'm not going to twist my bracelet up any or anything, so I'm holding it out straight and making sure nothing's all twisted, making sure I like the way that it looks. And then I'm going to bring that magnet up and over on the other side. Oh, here comes Kylie again. And after I can get the cat out of my view, I will put the pliers. She's still sitting in front of me. Come on, Kylie. Kylie, no, that's the camera, honey. No, come on, that's the camera. Come on, sweetie. I'm trying to teach people how to do this, honey. I know, purr. Okay, then you get your pliers, and she's back in front of me again, and she's hitting the camera again, and you close up your jump ring. Oh my, she really hit the camera. Okay, time to get down, honey. I know, time to get down. Come on. Alright, so now, if you have that all closed, and you have the cat interruption, so now you have your bracelet complete. Alrighty, so here is our finished bracelet, and I am holding my cat off to the side, so if you hear purring, then that's what it is. So here's our finished bracelet. So it ends up fitting pretty well on my wrist. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so that way you'll be notified next time I come out with another new video, which may or may not have a cat interruption. So thanks again, guys. Don't forget to leave a comment down below as well. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.